and welcome to the Aura Fury podcast. I am Erica. My username is RomGirl in the Discord, YouTube, and on Twitch. I am joined here today with Justin.
Hi everybody, esports director Aura Fury, Justin or Juco here at this interview with Joseph and Jeffrey of the Houston Gamers. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Joseph, we'll start with you.
Hello. Well, my name is Joseph. I do the social media for Houston Gamers. And yeah, it's nice to be here. Nice to meet y'all.
And
Okay.
Jeffrey, go ahead.
Yeah. So my name is Jeffrey. Online alias for virtually everything is Daramu, so Daramu. I am Houston Gamers president, been a part of Houston Gamers for 14 years, and same. I really appreciate y'all taking time to talk with us, learn more about the organization, and hopefully help grow the community.
Definitely. And that's a part of what we're trying to do here with our community too, is give them more options to reach out to different groups of people that not necessarily be able to find on their own. So Jeffrey, we'll start with you on who are the Houston Gamers. You say you've been with them for 14 years and the president, so I feel hopefully you might feel equipped to give us a really good answer in this question.
Yeah, I could say a couple things. So Houston Gamers, we kind of label ourselves as a social group. We're focused on providing a safe haven for the LGBTQ plus community. Gamers, comic book, anime nerds. The one thing that they all have in common is they all have a tendency to be very introverted. So one of the main things that we want to provide is a space where they can come together in a free of judgment zone and embrace each other's passions to the fullest. And I honestly say that 14 years, I feel like we've really delivered on that.
Sounds great. Yeah, I definitely appreciate a space like that. I think not only am I happy to hear that there's communities out there that are aware of this and shaping, but it also seems to be something that's becoming more popular to kind of to want to join these groups. They seem like a really helpful place for especially young people around that high school, college age to have a kind of a peer group to surround themselves with and feel comfortable and not necessarily get reclusive and feel like they're alone and they have all these people that share these interests that are slowly becoming more popular to be a part of, which I think is really cool and I appreciate as well. Joseph, if you want to kind of give your insight from the social media perspective, or maybe what drew you into the group and some of the things that you were excited with about Houston Gamers, you could share that if you'd like.
Yeah, so um I haven't been here all 14 years, but what really like drew me in was was I just had moved, so I moved back into Houston, and I was like, wow, I graduated high school, don't really know like anybody. So it just so happened that I had seen one of their events in passing, and I was like, you know what, I'll just give it a shot. And um, it was just like a lot of like-minded individuals who shared common interest. Um, we slowly have become more of a charity in a way. We are technically a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. We have been trying more and more to give back to the community. So it's not just providing like a safe haven for people to come and make friends and socialize, but also for us to give back to the community now that we have like a platform.
Nice. That's really great. I definitely appreciate that perspective as well of having to not only be in a leadership role in there, but also, finding the utility in it yourself coming in, not necessarily towards the beginning, but having them as a stable platform and then wanting to give back. I'll hand it over to you, Erica, as well for some questions.
Um, I guess I'd like to hear more about your community, the people that have joined you. I guess for them, they might see it from a different perspective since they've joined in, whereas you guys are kind of at the top trying to direct everything. What do people say when they come into your group? Have you gotten any good feedback from that?
Yeah, 100%. I think the biggest thing that I commonly hear from specifically new members is people thanking us for providing the space. Because where can you go anywhere? Like not just in Houston, but like where can you go that is welcoming not only to people who are wanting to talk about video games, anime, comic books, nerd culture. Like, what space provides that, but then also encourages you to be your true authentic self and express that with everyone around you. Like, there's so many places in Houston that are, you know, on surface level diverse, but as you talk to people, you kind of feel like you need to still hold back just a little bit. And we've had so many people come up and tell us that, you know, they didn't feel like they had to hold back. They were able to actually talk about, you know, them coming out, the games that they like, you know, that's two completely different ends of the spectrum, and they were able to talk about both of them in a completely safe environment. And, you know, I'm very proud that we were able to provide that for them.
Awesome. Happy to hear that you're getting the feedback that for the things that you're trying to achieve, because that's always a nice feeling when it's just like this is what you wanted to do, and then when people are coming back and saying this is what you've done, it's like wow, you got what you wanted and you can add to it. Anything else you want to add to that, Joseph?
It definitely is fulfilling, like just seeing it from like even like the social media stand viewpoint. Just getting like messages like, hey, like I'm so glad like I went to that meetup, or I'm so glad like I went to um like the game night on Discord. Like I didn't think like I'd be able to like interact with that many people because I'm shy. But it was really like just getting like messages like that, it's really like makes the job worthwhile.
Appreciate that.
All right, I guess we can build on from that though. So you're talking about your goals being providing the safe space for people to come and, not be judged. Is that what the original goals were? And has anything changed over the past years? As, 12 years is a long time to grow, change, and decide what direction you should be heading next. Where did this all begin?
So in the beginning, I was not a part of the original board. From our previous president, just knowing how the organization started. So 14 years ago, Eric Colsey, he created the group. And before he even created the group, it was literally just a Facebook invite thing. Hey, I'm meeting at Coffee Grounds at this time. Bring your DS and board games. Let's play some games. And that's all they did. I think they actually played Rock Band at the first one. The first one, I want to say, was about 8 members. So one of the very first people who showed up is actually like a really well-known drag queen in the community, Violets Are Blue. And so she'll still boast that as she's like going on certain events, like, oh, by the way, I was the very first Houston Gamer member. And so it's getting that free publicity. It's like, oh yeah, no, like Violets was there in the beginning. So that's how it started. As far as the original goal, I've known Eric Colsey for a while, so I know for a fact that the original goal was to create a safe space. That's all he wanted. He really wanted to have that, like 14 years ago, you compare 14 years ago to now, especially living in Texas, it wasn't even, you weren't even allowed to get married 14 years ago. So, like we didn't have that space. We didn't have that sense of community. So he wanted to create that. And, with that being what the original goal is, I think that we've completely hit that original goal. And kind of piggybacking off of what Joseph said earlier, that's why now we've already created that safe space. Now we want to start focusing on our community and providing something that's substantial and worthwhile. So that's why we're focusing on efforts that give back and focus more on not just us, but the entire LGBTQ community.
All right. Let's see. Let's see. When did that transition happen? Because you said you guys are now officially 501(c)(3. Congratulations. We know how long and hard of a process that is ourselves.
Yeah.
So, where did that transition, when did you guys go from, if you were involved in that part, when did they transition from just a little small group of friends just meeting up on a coffee on a weekend to we need to go bigger, we need to go and get filed, we need to get, federally and maybe even statewide recognized? When did that transition happen?
I want to say that happened pretty early on, because it didn't take long for us to build up. So I want to say that was at least 10 years ago. Like 10, we've been 501(c)(3 for about 10 years now. And our major push for that was we got a grant from Bunnies on the Bayou. They're a local nonprofit also that mainly raises funds so that way other nonprofits can do what they want to do. So we got one of their grants and we had obligations that we had to fulfill. So we decided to go ahead and take that plunge. We got our 501(c)(3 and just kind of ran with it. So
Excellent. All right. Well, then at least you guys had like a slightly financial motivation to get you going forward on that then too. So good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pretty,
100%.
pretty unanimous decision. Definitely no, nobody unsure about it. Was everybody on board with that?
Uh, Pretty much, yeah. So when we were making that decision, like I remember when they approached me about being on the board, like I was still a member. And so one of the board members at the time, Eric Chen, he's like, "Hey, so you're going to be a part of the Houston Gamers board." And I didn't even know what that meant at the time, but I was part of HR. So I was like, "That sounds pretty important. Can I get a copy of your bylaws and everything? I just want to read over
Yeah.
them real quick."
Yeah.
And like I'm going through it and I was like, "Bro, I literally just come here and play Smash and Pokemon. Like, did you get the right person?" And so, they had already laid the groundwork for it to be much bigger than it was going to be in the beginning. It's just they didn't vocalize it as much. It all kind of happened organically. But I still remember that phone call, like, because I called him right afterwards, like, "I think you got the wrong guy." And like, I literally just wanted to play Pokemon all night. And so, yeah, it's kind of crazy to go from that mindset 14 years ago of I really like just playing games with these people to, oh my goodness, I need to figure out like what we're going to do to help our community now. Like it's
Mm.
kind of crazy to think about how your mindset changes. But yeah, like it's night and day compared to the small group of friends from way back when.
Awesome. Anything you want to add to that, Joseph?
Because
Um,
Joseph started out as a member also. Like
yeah.
Yeah.
you'd been a member for a little bit beforehand also.
Yeah, I think as I don't want to bring like my sign into it or anything, but like I feel like as an Aquarius, no. Um, I think like as like a human with who empathizes with all sorts of people, um, it's just natural to want to help the community when you do have a platform and when you do have when you're able to, like so it's I think it was only natural for it to evolve into something that was giving back to the community. Um, we did, I want to say it was 2015 when we did Project Blue Shell, which was our previous community project, where we gave like pre-made boxes with games in them. So like the first round we did 2DSs and um, we had a few games in there and we gave them to places like Texas Children's, um, I want
Memorial
to
Herman.
Memorial Herman, I think also Tony's.
Tony's place. So we
Tony.
did 23 of them on that first batch. But they had like Super Mario, Mario Kart, and I think we put Animal Crossing on the 2DSs, so they were already pre-downloaded. You didn't have to worry about like having to put in a cartridge or whatnot. But it was literally just a blue box. So Joseph, you want to talk about Texas Children's, like why that's important?
Um, yes. Um, well, so I know like the second round we did like full switches with TVs.
Yep.
Um, but we are huge supporters of Texas Children's. We try to give back to we try to when we decide on who we want to like help and give back to, it's always like important for us to think about like who is, I guess, unable to like get things for themselves. And I think children who children don't really have like the opportunity to, they can't just go like, oh, hey, big company, can you give us some things, some
Mhm.
money?
Yeah.
They're kids, they don't they they're going to school and watching TV and playing games and stuff, they don't really have that opportunity. So I think that's why we picked Texas Children's.
Yeah.
You
And specifically with Texas Children's, I don't know if y'all know much about Extra Life, but it's their big
know.
campaign that they do every year. They raise a lot of money. It's mainly one big 24-hour game-a-thon to raise money for Texas Children's. And so without knowing about it, a lot of people are like, oh no, you're just raising money for kids. It's a little bit more than that because a lot of the kids at Texas Children's are bedridden. They have like actual areas in the hospital where like kids can go interact and play with each other and whatnot. But if you're bedridden, you can't go.
Hmm.
So that's where we
Mhm.
thought about Project Blue Shell. You can actually take a blue box that has a game on it already downloaded and just give it to someone who, can't move. Like they literally can just sit in bed. And so that's where the second part of Project Blue Shell came in, and we did the switches. And with the switches, it's not just like you throw a switch at them. We had like the carts that you would roll in on TV day in high school. Like you roll in a TV like that, and you can hand them the Joy-Con so that way they could play while they're in bed. And then more importantly, if they have family that's with them, you know, we have Mario Kart already on there, so they can actually play with someone. They're not playing by themselves also.
That's awesome.
And if they wanted to play with them by themselves, we had Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee already downloaded onto them. So it was literally whatever they wanted to do. Like we had two different modes, so that way they could play whatever they wanted to play. So that was the primary purpose of Project Blue Shell, and then also why we help support Texas Children's.
Mhm.
That's really great. Yeah, I definitely love that type of involvement, and I think the thoroughness in what you're talking about of having games that are not only meant for everyone to enjoy, but also when the family's there, when you're by
Mhm.
yourself and you want to feel like you're a part of something. I think specifically what you're talking about with like a game like Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu, those are like very fun and games that kind of draw you in and make you feel happy and a part of something, especially like, and even though all of us, it seems like all have like a background in Pokemon and stuff like that. Um, I think that also is a great community builder as well. Getting people that are interested in Pokemon gives you thousands of things to talk about with a stranger because it feels like everybody knows it, especially as kids. You can talk about which one's your favorite, which games you've played, what you've done in them. And even though you're playing by yourself, you feel like you're part of a greater whole, which is really cool. And I think that kind of community can really latch onto that idea. So I
Oh,
definitely appreciate
100%.
that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, like especially like like when you talk about it like on a one-on-one basis, it's kind of like, oh yeah, like yeah, everyone knows Pokemon, like everyone knows Pikachu. But you don't really like think about it. Well, at least I didn't think about it until like when Pokemon Go came out and people were just like in hordes all over the place. Like it's like, oh, they're playing Pokemon Go. Like everyone's playing Pokemon Go. And it's just like
Oh,
it's
I
so
stand by
crazy.
it. When Go came out, that is the closest we will ever get to world peace.
It was. It
Yeah.
absolutely was.
Grandmas,
That is
grandpas,
It was.
everybody.
youngins,
It
everybody
was
was playing.
it was a place for every generation to finally have a common interest, and nobody was
Hmm.
excluded. Like literally I'd be talking to my bosses from work and they'd be so excited about raising a whooper, and I'm just like, I remember raising my whooper way back when I played, Silver, and I was so happy that I was just like I can share that joy with them now. Be like, you'll be so happy when you get a Quagsire, and
Yeah.
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 Oh, my first week when Pokemon Go came out, we were staying up all hours. Like we're like, okay, we gotta go. And
Yeah.
so we were at the park this one night, and I was like, oh guys, a Snorlax just popped up, and this police officer rolled up. He's like, hey, 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 what are y'all doing? I was like, I'm sorry, sir. There's a Snorlax. Like, whoa, there's a Snorlax, and like he joined us. It's like, all right, you get it. Let's go. So,
That's perfect.
again, that is the closest we'll ever get to world peace. So.
Well, more on Project Blue Shell and Extra Life. If there's any other community projects that you all want to mention, this would be a great time to mention them. I know those are big, they sound awesome, but if there's any other that you want to talk about, I know Joseph, you're on the social media side, so I want to give the floor to you. I feel like you might be able to market this.
Yeah, so our current community project, while we still do Extra Life, it is on a like a yearly, like once a year kind of thing. Our current community project is Project Level Up. We um, decided that after COVID, it was very important for us to um, kind of um, like get our community to think a little more about their mental health. Like everyone was locked up for however long that was. I don't it's all a blur.
It
But
is.
um you know, I think being all like locked up like that, everyone started to really think about like, wow, like maybe my mental health was not where it should have been, or like maybe I should have had a better like um work 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 and life balance. Now that we're working from home, like it's totally more accessible. But we decided that we wanted to have mental health, basically workshops, seminar kind of style events. So that's currently what we're doing. We're doing like mental health workshops for free for our members. We have one actually tomorrow. Well, I guess when this comes out, it might be not tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, but our next one is going to be defeating the shadow self. So, like self-doubt, and how to overcome that, um, in a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely appreciate that. There's something that we talk about a lot in our community as well, is keeping track of your mental health, and really having a support system like what you're talking about getting set up is really helpful, because the hardest thing that I believe is when it comes to battling mental health is recognizing that there's a problem, because it's so hard to see
Mm,
internally when something's not normal, because for you it's really easy for something that's not great to become normalized because it's all you know. So having a
mm,
group around you that are like, hey, like we're not antagonizing you, maybe like someone in your life might be who doesn't quite understand, who isn't like a peer or a friend or something you can count on, is like, hey, maybe you're not feeling great, and they either can accuse you of that or you don't feel comfortable reaching out for help. When you have a group that is built on the foundation of making you feel welcome and comfortable, it's a lot easier to hear that from them. And I definitely can empathize and appreciate what you all are trying to do with that.
yeah, and like sometimes it's even if you go thinking um like, oh, I'm fine. I don't have nothing wrong with me. Um there's also like an aspect of, well, one, you could go and then be like, oh wow, I never really thought about that, or I never realized that. Like you said, it's like normalized behavior. But also there's a sense of like solidarity, like when you do go to these things like in a group setting where it's like, wow, like I didn't realize like, other people were going through the same things that I was going through. And it's definitely like, it's kind of like workout partners, like you keep
Right.
each other like motivated and keep each other in check.
I also like that you're focusing specifically on the fact that the COVID years, people were basically locked up, kept away from each other. And I think because mental health suddenly became a very uh, front and center type of situation
Mm,
because of how many people, like, suicide rates went through the roof during those frames and stuff. And a lot of people are coming out of that now without those communication skills, without those social skills, not knowing how to even interact with people their age anymore, because there was such a giant gap in what would, for a lot of people, that's the most important time of their lives, is that, a couple of years either at the end of high school, beginning college. That's when you really go out and learn how to talk with people and stuff. So if you feel like that this has helped bridging that gap and closing those years that were just lost to time for a lot of those people, do you feel that that's really accomplishing that that's what you're trying to catch up with there?
yeah, definitely that is a huge aspect. You know, getting out of the COVID years, even like someone like me who's not like a spring chicken, if you will, um, even like coming out of it, it was like I had to feel like I had to learn how to like walk and talk all over again, like
Hmm.
because everything's so different. And there's now different social norms and different just like all kinds of things. But it's I think that what we're trying to do is definitely get people in a place where they can um, feel like they can move on a day-to-day basis without feeling like beating themselves up. Even like getting to the point where um, they can go out and do normal things without like just going to the grocery store. Some people might have like a difficult time, like um, just navigating the whole like, hey, like, can you help me find this? Like, there's all kinds of things that we're aiming to help people with their different struggles. That's why each level up we're changing the theme, I guess. Like from this one, it's talking about self-doubt. Um, I think the previous one was like a uh, work and social life balance, and um, hopefully in the future we can tackle more things so we can have a wide spectrum of help for different kinds of people.
So, just asking for a friend, can you guys do a clinic on how to call the doctor and schedule your own appointment? And to also,
Actually, actually, yeah, like no joke, we had one when we first started doing them. We did have one that was resume building,
Mm,
interviewing. So like we did mock interviews and then also like portfolio shots.
Yeah,
Um,
it was our workforce seminar. Like we wanted to
yeah.
say, hey, get ready for the workforce.
Yeah, we didn't want people to
oh,
be like, especially like fresh out of COVID, like everyone's been doing like Zoom and stuff,
Yeah,
going back to normal like face-to-face interviews was like, oh,
yeah.
like heart
Yeah.
attack. So
yeah.
um we definitely want to do like more stuff like that, like um day-to-day skills as well. Yeah.
I love that everything's named in gamer talk too, like, getting an extra life, level up IRL. I'm loving that all of it is to some extent some sort of gaming reference that, it applies to what you're trying to do, but everybody understands what that language is coming from.
Yeah.
Love it.
We try our hardest to keep the branding
Yeah.
with gamer language.
And Jeffrey, is there anything else when it comes to projects either that you've been a part of as a group or that you've created that you wanted to either elaborate on if it's something we've already mentioned or another one that we haven't heard of yet?
So Extra Life and Blue Shell, those were kind of my babies. So 14 years of this, I'm glad that we're getting to the point where our board feels comfortable having their own babies and taking them out for walks and making sure that they can grow. Because seeing my babies, like I'm getting old. I'm going to be 39 in 2 months. Like I can't keep doing this. So I'm glad that I have people who are coming up and like having that drive to keep it going. Specifically with Level Up, Joseph hit the nail on the head. Like it was just something that was needed. And we had a couple members on our board who were like, I want to provide this service. And so if the only thing that they're asking from me is a venue and ideas on things to talk about, yeah, sure. I want to help make sure that they're supported so that way we can keep these things going. Because, the next thing that we're working on is gamers give back. And so in lieu of Extra Life this year, that's going to be the next thing that we're working on. We're going to be raising money so that way we can create bags to give out to the homeless in December. So we haven't worked out all the details yet, but that's the next project we're working on. And that's not something I came up with. That's something that my board came up with. And that's because they feel comfortable bringing the idea out and talking with us so we can get a fully fleshed out idea. So that way we can figure out how to execute it.
That sounds really great too, especially in that holiday time. It's really nice to have a project that you're pushing forward to give out to people that are less capable, like you said. There's a lot of what the goal of your, projects are is to give it to people who can't necessarily either advocate for themselves or aren't like franchise groups, I guess.
Correct.
A better way to
Word.
say it.
Yeah.
How does Houston Gamers help out with the elderly side of the LGBTQ plus community? I know that's something that maybe you all could give a more fine, light shown on it that I think is another group that I personally I feel connected to, but I don't see they're not the vocal majority in most circles, I think. Like
Oh,
when
for
you think of like
sure.
Twitter And you think of like Instagram, it's definitely more of this like younger generation post-COVID that are coming out and saying, hey, this is like our space to talk about ourselves, and aren't necessarily getting the proper light shown on the more elderly side of it, which I think is a very much an important part of the community as well, if you want to talk more
Yeah.
about it.
So on the elderly LGBTQ side, are you familiar with Law Harrington?
No?
Yeah, so Law Harrington, LGBTQ plus not homeless, elderly community over here in Houston. What we did was we just took some board games, games that are easily accessible for everybody, and we just took or was it a Saturday morning? We took a Saturday morning. We were there for probably about, I want to say, about 5 hours, and we just played games with them. And the cool thing about the elderly community is they have stories to tell. So as you're
Hmm.
playing games with them, like some of them were getting sassy with us, some of them were like I'm big on strategy games, so like chess, checkers, things like that. Like, so I had people showing me things like, okay, I see you, and then just being able to have those interactions, because it's about the community, and the elderly are a part of our community. So a lot of people have a tendency to be like, oh no, they're old, and that's not the case. Like, we're all still here. We're all a part of the same community. Everyone still likes to play games. So Law Harrington was our big push into trying to help out another part of the community that you normally don't see a lot of representation on. And so because of that, they loved us. They really enjoyed having us there. So they asked us to come back. I think we have our next one planned for December. So we're going to be doing another game day there. So you don't have to just be a Houston Gamers member. If you want to come play a game with the elderly, please come out. We'd love to have you all. But along with that, we're going to be getting some board games together, some card and board games, because we noticed they had a lot of like what you would expect, Yahtzee, decks of cards and whatnot. So we're going to get them some upgraded games, so that way they can have some more fun while we're not there also. But that's kind of what our involvement's been with Law Harrington.
I love that. That is especially what you're talking about with the ability to reach out to that community as they're like truly an active part of the community as well. They're not something that's so distant. And I think that's especially true in the LGBTQ plus community, is that you see the people that especially know what you're going through if you're someone who identifies that as well, or even just like an ally, and can talk about, kind of the internal turmoil that you might have going on, or some of the life experiences that you think that are a little bit harder to share with someone who isn't a part of the community. And they can kind of put it in perspective for you. They're like, yeah, I've been there, I've worked through it. And it could be as simple as that, as say like, someone that says, hey, you're valid, I see you. Or even someone that's like, I still go through it every day, is something that is a part of me, and something that I'm working to make sure that, I'm happy, that the life I've built for myself is something I can be proud of. And you can get advice from someone who's really, put in the years and the time to truly understand where they're at, and feel maybe comfortable and confident in
Uh,
themselves, which is something I know as a young person that I, still to this day, have trouble with. Be like, you wake up in the morning, I was like, am I confident, comfortable as I could be? And I think having not only peers around your age to have that support system with the people that are a little bit more past you, that'd be able to, give you advice.
yeah. And just to kind of follow up on that, like, when you think about it, when we're growing up, there were so many things that were like, oh, don't do this. Oh, that's weird. Oh, that's a little bit off. When you have somebody that's actually a part of your community that says, sweetie, you're fine the way you are, it's so validating. It is 100% so validating. And to be able to go straight to the source, play games with these people and have them tell you that, like, it doesn't matter how old you are, it breaks you a little bit, because we went so long without being told that, and we went so long without actually thinking that we were valid. So it's good to be able to, as you said, go to these communities and actually feel that embrace.
I'm gonna
Definitely
jump
love
in
that.
just really quick here because for me and Justin, we're not Texas natives. So if a lot of the communities you guys are working with are Texas home base type things, uh, treat it like we've never heard of it before, because there's a
Oh,
lot
I'm
of things
sorry.
that we're still no,
It's
that's
okay.
okay, because for us, we do live in Texas, but we're originally from Michigan. So for us, a lot of the groups and the communities that we are familiar with are from back in home base, and we're still learning a lot of them here in Texas. Texas is a very large state, so we've been learning between different cities and different communities. Now, Houston's great for a hub. We've heard there's a lot of good support and a lot of a large LGBTQ plus community down there that's really open and welcoming. But we don't know much out beyond Houston. So if there's like groups in San Antonio or Dallas, the Fort Worth area, we're not familiar with any of them yet. So if you could just kind of summarize who you guys are working with just a little bit to give us a bit of a background of who they are, that would
Sure.
definitely help out some of us just to put it in perspective.
Yep. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, no, you're doing good. We figure it out, but it's just for us and of course our audience. Not everybody's Texas based, so we're still picking through which ones we know and which ones we don't know.
Okay.
Not everybody's US based either. We have a pretty
Yeah,
far
that
reach
too.
with
Yeah.
Europe
Oh.
and other islands circling the US and Australia as well. But and then I'm not Texas at all. I'm prospective Texas. I'm thinking about, becoming Texas maybe down the line. But
Texas is number one for
hey, that's
sure.
I keep hearing. I had a great time. I recently went out there and it was very welcoming. I stayed with them and they were great. So I love it out there. And I think that like Erica mentioned, and it seems like everybody also agrees that Houston's a great hub for, feeling not only included because there's so much going on. Like it feels like you have to go out of your way not to kind of keep your head under a rock and not find something that speaks to you. And especially with the groups like you're saying, where the people that are a little bit more internal and want to, stay inside most days. There's groups out there for them that are like, hey, even if you want to stay inside, hop on Discord, we can play games and watch anime. Or, hey, if you want to try your hand at going outside and making that leap that might be a little scary, there's this group that can kind of catch you and make you feel comfortable. So I appreciate that definitely.
All right. I guess that means I get to take the next one. Because I'm trying to keep track here because we're covering a lot of topics kind of by accident. But so with some of these projects that you've handled, what kind of challenges have you encountered in them? Or at the very least, where did you have some maybe friction, paperwork, legal issues, anything that possibly held you guys up? Were there anything worth mentioning?
Can I take this one?
I don't care. Whoever has to take, I'll happily take. Whoever's confident, go for it.
Honestly, our biggest challenge has always been social media. There's so many outlets and there's so many different ways of getting information. And for the longest time, there were only 7 of us. We just recently got up to 8. So social media has always been the beast that we've been fighting. Like we're going on 14 years of fighting social media. So thankfully, that's when we got Joseph on, and our social media presence has like been through the roof since Joseph came on. But even now, like Joseph does an outstanding job, but we still have members who miss information, like when our events happen, time, place. Like even if he posts it's all on the same event, like or on the same post, sometimes people still miss the information. And it's one of those things where, people's attention spans are what they are. So you can't really fault people for that. But it's still a beast. It's still what we struggle with. And we do our best to make sure that we're on every outlet that we possibly can. But if I were to like pinpoint what my biggest frustration has been over 14 years, I would say social media. So Joseph, I don't know if you feel the same. I will pass it to you now.
Yes. This is, I want to say, going on year 3? Question mark.
You're at 3.
So after when I first joined, that was like what I really wanted to do. I was like, it's a little weird going like months without posting anything on Instagram, or on Facebook. So I really wanted to tackle it, and it's a lot. It's definitely a lot of curating content, but it's I think one of the biggest challenges that in terms of like our even now, like now that it's like a more active, it's still like you said, like there's people who miss things. There's not like a for sure way to like get the information to everyone without like pestering almost. Because like Discord, you could add everyone for every event, but then like people are gonna be like, oh, why do you add everyone for everything?
Yeah.
Or but then like the people who, like he said, like will miss like the posts that we make. It's like, oh well, then they're not getting that information because we didn't specifically ping them and they didn't get the notification in their phone or whatever. But yeah, I think that's honestly like the biggest challenge is like just the social media getting the information out to everybody. Um, and even like there's even like a struggle of um like do I want it to look pretty or do I want all the information to be there?
Yeah.
Or
So,
finding a way to make both happen to where it's like, is this pretty and attractive enough while still getting all the relevant information out? Sometimes striking that balance. I hated working with our social media as well because it just felt like every week it was like a chore of, oh God, here's all the information. Now to make it presentable.
Yeah.
it's easy when there's a new game. Like Animal Crossing comes out, easy.
Yeah.
Isabel, Thought Bubble, done. But when it's like dead time, what do you do? So
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I think like especially like honestly with the level up, it's a huge like because like you do have games like that are a little more thought-provoking or a little more leaning into like mental health awareness and stuff like that or emotional but it's really hard to like pull from that and make it into like presentable gaming advertising content.
Yeah.
um but we're doing our best.
Well, again, you're doing good. Like the 3 years you've been doing this, you've been doing amazing. So
Thanks. No, flip my hair.
Oh, I love hearing the support for each other because I tell you, sometimes your best motivators just is each other. The saying,
Oh,
hey, you did
honestly.
exactly what you needed to do and you're doing a good job. So good to hear you guys have a good motivation within your own side of things too. All right. Continuing on with the whole challenges thing, this might start getting to be a bit more touchier topics and sensitive topics, but since you focus so much with specifically the LGBTQ plus IA community, what challenges do they still face in the gaming industry? We still have plenty of toxicity in gaming, and I'm sure you guys
Oh
bump
yeah.
into it more than your fair share of times. How are you tackling that?
So the biggest challenge that I'm sure all of us face with anything in the gaming community is anytime, not even gaming, it could be, you know, nerd culture, anything, anytime they introduce an LGBTQ representation in any type of media, you always have that bandwagon of people who are like, why are you shoving this agenda down my throat? And it's disheartening because as someone who's going to be 39 in 2 months, like I went through the part of my life where I had absolutely no representation to the part of my life where it's like, what the hell is Steven Universe and why are they openly talking about this? I didn't know that we could do this
Oh.
to, like Steven Universe was like my eye opener. I was like, wait, we can actually talk about this? Like, we're okay now? And you still have people who will get up in arms. These rocks can't be gay. I was like, well, no, they can do whatever they want. Like, and that's the thing. I can do whatever I want. And it's even in our own community, like you'll have some people like, okay, they're really quick to be like, okay, well, I only talk to people, I only talk to twins, I only talk to bears, I only talk to this, I only talk to that. And it's taken so much in me to educate people as when you say things like that, you alienate yourself so much. No one wants to talk to you. No one wants to be around you. No one wants to do anything with you because you've already expressed that you don't want anything to do with anything except what you're telling them. And that's not the space for this. We're a space where we're trying to provide a safe space for everybody. It doesn't have to be what your preferences are or anything like that. We want this space to be something where everyone can come together and talk about the things that they want to talk about. And honestly, none of that matters. We really just want to provide a safe space for our community. And in the gaming industry, I feel like they constantly go through that. When what was it, Last of Us, when they said that the main character was a lesbian, everybody got up in arms over that. It's like, well, no, this representation matters. How many games actually have lesbian representation? Like, you have to be able to like see yourself in these games, otherwise you're not going to be enthralled with them. And if you constantly tell people like, no, they have to be cis male heterosexual relationships, it gets boring and no one's going to relate to it. And you're not going to get that wider audience. And more importantly, it's not going to make us feel like we belong.
Yeah, and especially like um when Houston Gamers first started, there was no Love Simon, there was no
None.
there was no like Last of Us,
uh,
there wasn't like all
yeah,
of the like LGBTQ characters that were like really popular were always like a caricature, very like, oh, I'm the comedic relief, like I don't do anything serious, like I'm just here to be funny and then never show up ever again after people rage about it. So,
yeah.
um,
Like dating myself a little bit, the only representation I really had was Pacey from Dawson's Creek and Will and Grace.
Oh.
Like, tells you a little bit about myself, but yeah, like to see how much representation there is now,
mm,
it like completely breaks my heart. But not breaks it warms my heart because like I had none. And now like to see like Joseph, you're substantially younger than I am. So like to know that people who are substantially younger than I am and they have like someone they can look at, they could be like, oh, you know what, I kind of like hulking, like he kind of fits my personality, and I kind of like that power. Or Doctor Who, it's like, yeah, no, I could be quirky like that. Like I'm so glad people are able to insert themselves into these roles and actually be like, I'm valid. It's so much more than I had, and I love it so much.
yeah, and a little bit like about like what you were saying earlier, Jeffrey, is like not only are we seeing like representation for different aspects of the LGBTQ plus community, we're also seeing a lot of like representation for people of color, and I am here for it. I love being able to like turn on the TV and it be like someone like Love Victor, even though technically like the actor isn't like an LGBTQ plus actor, but just seeing like someone's life like portrayed on the screen that is like more my complexion and that goes through the same struggles that um a lot of other people go through is really like heartwarming.
Agreed.
I'm going to jump in on what Joseph was saying earlier about how for a lot of the LGBTQ plus representation for the longest time in media was just the side character, the sideshow that was supposed to be the comic relief, that was just supposed to be the one moment filling the stereotypical role only to be, pushed off and then the rest of the story back on the focus of the main character. And at the time, it almost like dehumanized them for the time being that they were on the screen, where it was just like, haha, they're not actually people. They're here to just fill this little role for a moment, and then we move on to the real part of the story. And for me, more of the representation, especially with Overwatch, because we're a community that plays a lot of
Mm-hmm.
Overwatch. And I also got to see a bit more representation popping up in a very interesting franchise I didn't expect them to do, but in Pokemon. They started stepping into that field of bringing on, like, they had main characters where it's a girl who clearly dressed more like a man, had more of the masculine features. And then they had a male character who clearly dressed more into the feminine side of things. And I was just like, oh, wow, they're finally, this is Japan's usually a pretty hardened culture that won't touch those cultures. And here they finally did. They finally stepped into it and went, you know what, we're going to go ahead. We're going to bring people of color in. We're going to bring people that represent all of the spectrums and not just only the feminine women and only the masculine men. They're starting to reach more into that middle section. And I think that made a lot of people, again, it's both sides. You got the side where they're so happy to see it, the representation's there. And then, of course, you get the other side where you end up with your fights on Twitter and social media, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I was just really
Uh,
happy to see more of that starting to happen, especially with characters that are meant to be main characters, not your, oh, I just came across this random trainer out in a side mountain. No, these were actually main game story characters you were coming across and being introduced to. And I loved that. I love that they're finally putting that front and center saying they're real, they're here, and you're going to interact with them just like you would with any other person.
Joseph, I wanted to ask you as well from the social media side of things. I can understand, I know from my own personal experience on social media that there's plenty of support, like we've been mentioning, for communities that are trying to take these initiatives to reach out, but also there's plenty of like backlash, like we were talking about at the beginning, of people that are like very upset when they hear something that they have in their mind is like this isn't attached to like a greater community of like inclusiveness, and then they get upset and then they maybe lash out on social media. Does that something that affects your day to day on the social media side of things? Is this
Mhm.
something that challenges that you face of trying to, like maneuver in that shared space with people, not only the demographic you're trying to hit of this area of inclusion, but also people that are potentially lashing out either from not being a part of the community, or something that Jeffrey said earlier, which is like wanting to just be a part of their niche in the community and maybe not wanting to interact with the greater community as a whole.
Since I've started things, we really haven't had any like super crazy like um backlash, but I want to say that like a thing that we get is is our group only for like specifically like gay males because it has the word gamers, so people like assume that it's just for like men or people who like are presenting as men. Um, so I think that there's that's like the most that we get, but it's never like anything like feeling exclusionary because um like I feel like once they like dig a little deeper or like look a little come to our events or even talk to like any one of the board, um it's it becomes clear that it's not just for like one specific type of person. We're trying to um have everyone in a shared space where we can all have fun.
That's really good to hear, especially seeing that that's like a real thing that you were able to give like an example of like, yeah, this is a misconception that sometimes needs to be alleviated. And I think, like you said, with the name, it is susceptible to being misconstrued, but I think, like you said, it's really helpful once you talk to somebody and the doors open up and you see what's inside, and you don't just assume based on, I guess, like the cover of the book. You're like, oh yeah, this is just a place of full inclusion, which I definitely like to boast that the greater community as a whole also is like usually if you talk to anybody, it's all just like, yeah, I just want to feel like I belong amongst everybody and I want everyone to feel the same
Hmm.
way. And it's never that feeling of exclusion. So that's really nice to hear that, those are real issues that you all are tackling, as well as, making it clear what your group stands for,
Yeah,
providing
and
that
I
space.
I think that's like the main thing is like when there are like if there are things like that, it's always like good to have like a conversation because I feel like once you like have a conversation, it's easier to clear things up. It's a lot less, it's a lot harder to get the wrong picture if you just talk it out.
Well, I guess we'll keep going with that kind of idea. Do you think things are improving for the LGBTQ community then? Do you have, over the years, have you seen a big enough transition that you can say overall things are improving?
I think so. I think it's the more connected the world becomes, the more improvement we see with the LGBTQ plus community. Um, Especially like just seeing like how many people like are on social media, like things like TikTok and um just like, hey, like this is me, like take it or leave it. Like there's no more there. I don't want to say there's no more. That's a little crazy, but there's less of people being like, like I don't think I can like be myself because there's so many people everywhere that you can find people like in your community, um your niche, you can just find people everywhere. There's always a community for somebody.
And Jeffrey, is there anything that you feel from, like you said, you've been in this space for a while as a part of either the board or just a part of the group, that since the beginning with these potential improvements to the community as a whole of like being inclusive to LGBTQ plus gamers and just people in general, is there any notable improvements that you've seen? You've talked about it before of like, representation from when you were figuring out yourself in the beginning to where you are now and being able to put yourself in the shoes of the new generation of like, oh, I'm happy that these changes have been made in media. Is there anything tangible on the gaming part of that, or just in general, like that maybe beyond just like TV and other like more mainstream sources of media?
Yeah, so for me, I've seen drastic change. Like even with all the legislation and all the hate that's been towards like specifically the trans community, overall, I've still seen drastic improvements for our community as a whole. And when you take a step back and you actually think about it and you actually like look at it, the main reason why we're seeing all of these improvements is because our community is supporting our community. We're not relying on other people to get our validation. We're getting that validation from ourselves. We're telling each other that, hey, the things that you've gone through are valid because I've gone through them and I'm still okay. Or the things that you're going through may suck right now, but it's only going to suck for right now. Things are going to get better. And our community is really good about making sure that we understand that. And more specifically, when we see that our community is hurting or we see that our community is struggling, we get up in arms to make sure that our community is going to be better. So kind of answering this question, kind of piggybacking on the last one that you asked, Joseph, we did have like one incident where somebody started making some anti-trans comments on our wall, and we just let them know, it's like, hey, this isn't tolerated. We do support our trans community. They're just as valid as we are, and it's going to be a safe space for everyone. We're not going to tolerate any type of hate speech towards anyone. And so by having those conversations, making sure you set the expectation that everyone is included, everyone is accepted, that's how you continue to have these improvements in the community, because you just let people know that there's a certain level of acceptance, acceptance that you're going to have as the baseline, and you're not going to accept anything other than that. And I feel like if no other community, the LGBTQ plus community is really good about making sure we set that clear line in the sand and we follow it all the way through.
And yes, we do still have work to be done, as always.
100%.
There's always work to be done, but we do feel that there have been like significant improvements in the past 14 years since
Yeah. I mean,
this org started.
14 years ago, I wouldn't even hold my husband's hand. Now, if you have a problem with me holding my husband's hand, we've been married for 8 years, you need to get over it. Like, that's not only my growth, but I feel like that's the LGBTQ community's growth. Like, we've all gotten to that point. It's like, if you have a problem with us holding hands, I don't know how to help you, because this is the bare minimum of like human interaction with your like significant other. So yeah.
Definitely. I think a lot of what your potential answer to this question would be is just got answered. So I wanted to kind of shove it in there, maybe give you a platform to continue down that road of explanation. But building safe spaces in organizations like your own, I feel like you just mentioned, come on the back of setting those expectations out like very early. It's like, hey, we don't tolerate this type of hate speech, and we do want to prop these pieces of our community up. We want to support either it be like the trans community, like you mentioned in your example, or if it's just any specific part of the niche of the community as a whole. We want them all to feel uplifted the same amount. We want everybody to feel just as included. So how were you able to foster that type of safe space in your own community, and what advice would you give to maybe new and budding communities or older communities that are just now entering this more like allied space, and what they could do to make it apparent that, hey, these are kind of, maybe not a part of our founding ideas, but this is something we're changing and adapting to be, to enable people to feel comfortable within a space?
Is it okay if I take this one? Okay, cool. So the major way I've combated a lot of this is just by having open communication. So it wasn't eye-opening to me until we had done one of our after parties for an event that was being thrown down here years ago called PAX South. All it was a 3-day video game expo. People came, they promoted their games. It was a lot of indie developers, card games, board games, video games, but it was a great venue because it didn't feel like it was like exclusively straight. Like there were a lot of support for any type of LGBTQ representation. So and even with our after party got like what, 2,000 people at the after party, and we were literally like, we didn't hide our name, so they knew what kind of organization we were, but they still came to our after party. But one of the people that I talked to at the after party, he was a I don't know if he still streams, but at the time he's like, hey, I get about, maybe 2 to 3,000 people per stream. I don't openly advertise that I'm gay, but y'all have your advertising all over this venue. Why do you do that? And I flat out told him, I was like, well, I didn't have that growing up. And because I didn't have that growing up, I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought that there was something that I was doing wrong, that I wasn't quite a part of what was supposed to be accepted. And so by us putting our name out there, we're telling people that doesn't matter who you are, you can come here and play games with us. And so he's like, well, why should I do that on my streams? And I was like, well, because you could have somebody on your streams that is still figuring things out. And if they see somebody who is a successful streamer who gets 2 to 3,000 people per stream and is openly out, queer, gay, lesbian, straight, whatever, and is living their life and is very strong, prominent figure, it's empowering because you can literally place yourself, like you can like see yourself in that place. And even if you're not ready to go out there and tell the world, you at least see somebody else who is, and they're living their life, and they're living their life to the truest part of themselves. And you give them the strength to go and be the person that they're going to be. And keep in mind, this is 2 a.m. We've already had drinks. It's like philosophical drunk time. But by the end of that conversation with this person, he's like, I think that's the kind of community I want to build. I think I'm going to start advertising that I'm gay on my streams. And I was like, that's great. I'm glad to hear it because that's how we grow our community. It only takes one more person being proud of who they are. So that way the rest of us could be proud of who we are. And it stuck with me. That was like 8 years ago. And that like vividly rings through my head like almost every other day because that was somebody who didn't know why representation mattered. And I was able to have that conversation with him and explain you being who you are is making a difference for someone else. And, I think that it's still on topic for the question, but that's, I take that conversation that I had with that person as how we build our community because we still do it at our meetups. People who I think that I want to identify as they, them. If that's how you're comfortable, then yeah, put that on your name badge and, they, them it is. Like, I just want you to be happy. So
Yeah, and I think another portion of like building a community is also like educating yourself. Even now, there's like it's things are always evolving, things are always changing, but trying to stay up to date with like different terms, different like there's like 42 different pride flags. So just staying up to date with those. Also, like actually listening to people is a huge, like sometimes all you have to do is listen and then it's like, oh, okay, like I get it now. Like, there's just like a lot of different ways to help build up the support and community, being inclusive and all that kind of stuff.
Definitely. I think that, like you mentioned, a lot of the parts of the community that even I, as like a member as well, that I struggle with are usually nothing to do with like not feeling identified in that part of the community or not appreciating it. It's more of just like, staying up to date, staying in the loop, like taking care of your own like ignorance to a part of the community that you identify with. And then once that dialogue opens up, especially in an inclusive place where you don't feel like your ignorance is being attacked and everybody there is just there to, like, especially in like a stream setting where everyone's just happy to be there and happy to like express themselves because they see it as like a place where they can represent other people or they can just be true to themselves and be happy about it. It's easier to bridge that knowledge gap.
Yeah.
So I think that's
And
really helpful.
to kind of follow up with that, like keeping up to date with the lingo and everything, the whole thing is the conversation. So I think the biggest thing is, let's say, for example, that you accidentally misgender someone. Don't feel bad and like you can't talk to them anymore. Just like, oh, I'm so sorry, that's a mistake on my part. What are your preferred pronouns? You've had a quick conversation, you've validated the other person, and you're not going to make that mistake again. Don't feel afraid to have those conversations. Like, we want to make sure people feel included. So even if you mess up, you're going to mess up. That's going to happen. Have that conversation so that way people still feel valid. It's worse when you make the mistake and you don't try and rectify it.
Exactly. I've seen that happen, especially in like college age. It was like all the time that would happen at like parties and stuff. And the people that would remain friends after that instance were always the people that are like, their immediate reaction was to want to rectify it by saying like, "Oh, how do I do better? How do I learn your pronouns? How do you want to be identified?" And then because I still want to talk to you before this like faux pas happened, like we were having a great time, then I just slipped up because of like my own misunderstanding. And then the people that put the extra effort in to want to make everyone feel comfortable are the ones that are, that are willing to learn. And then if other people, I know especially with like my friends and myself, when you see that interaction happen in a social setting, and then you get kind of insight onto how to maybe go about it if that ever happens to you, or maybe how to navigate through future interactions, it's easy to not maybe make the same missteps and then make sure everybody feels comfortable. And it's all a learning process for everybody. And I think feeling nervous and scared is okay. And I think that as become more mature and adept at navigating through it, it'll become like second nature, and then everybody will turn to you later and then be like, okay, how do I navigate it as like, new people come out every day. So it's gonna be it's a challenge for everybody and making sure everybody feels comfortable, and we all just have to be willing to kind of mold our pre-existing ideas about what something is to meet, the new demand of new people. So, but is there as someone who, I'm not in Houston, so I can't particularly per se like join to be a part of this community, but for some of us in our audience that maybe are in the Houston area or in like the greater like Texas area, how could they join up with Houston Gamers either online or in person?
Well, thankfully,
Yeah.
I have an amazing social media lead, so I'm gonna
Oh,
I'm gonna pass that over.
yeah. So we have a lot of stuff online. We have our Discord, which currently has 600 people, question mark. I'd have to look that up again. But
I've been on Discord like 3 times a week for the last 6 months, so yeah.
yeah, we have it. We have it there, streamer lounge kind of thing. There's regular lounges, all kinds of different categories to talk about in terms of like text channels. But we also do have we have like the Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, all those different accounts. But we also have a Facebook group, which is, I was told Facebook is for old people. So I guess it's for us oldies who which it's I guess just like a regular like forum style group. You can post whatever. Like, hey, like I think we had somebody recently post like, oh, hey, like um don't forget, like you can get your mystery gift on the new Pokemon expansion. Don't forget it because it's gonna leave soon. Like, we just have that kind of stuff. But we also do have a lot of in-person events. Um, I want to say for all of our events, there's usually no cover fee unless It is something special, like if we rent out a movie theater for a movie night, or if we have um like a rented shared space. But for the most part, all of our events are free. We do have some age requirements, like for our main meetup, you do have to be 21 or over. But for like our handhelds connect, which is like our board game night and handheld devices, there's no age requirement or anything like that.
I love that. Yeah, especially with like the age range of like the average gamer. I think having an event like that that's for them is nice, and then having, having the boundary set of like 21 plus is very safe, especially for, just like the wide array of people that are going to be there, and as well as like, the eligibility to drink as well. So
Yeah, we try to have a little something for everyone, like party night here, wholesome event here, movie night, a little bit of everything. To Because not only, like there's people um who don't partake in drinking alcohol, but also um, for younger people, we need something to um help get them involved, and to make sure that we're not leaving anyone out.
yeah, and how would someone contribute to the Houston Gamers, whether that be through like fundraising, or that just be in any other way that you might be more equipped to know other ways that people have contributed in the past, but how do people reach out and help you all?
I mean, we like money. Send us money.
It's the way you get things going.
But no, we actually don't do a whole lot of fundraisers for ourselves because our group is kind of self-sufficient. But I mean, obviously, we'll take any type of monetary donation that is sent our way. The biggest way to support us, follow us on our socials, come out to our events. We get more support by the amount of people that come to our events. Just so you have a number range, on our main meetup, we get anywhere between 100 to 160 people at our main meetups. For our handheld events, it's a little bit smaller, so we usually get about 25 to 35 people at our handheld events, but that's 2 events that we do every single month for 12 months. So when you're literally interacting with, on average, 120 people between 2 events every single month, the biggest support that we get is when you come out and you talk to us and you play games with us. You're not only validating yourself and having a space where you feel validated, but you interacted with someone and you made their night and you like enjoyed things that they enjoyed. So it's going to make them come back. So our biggest support that you can give us is, if you live in Houston, come to our events. And if the bar's not your scene, like Joseph was saying, we have events that we do that are at a restaurant. We have volunteer opportunities that we do with local nonprofits. We have social nights where we'll go to like Dave and Buster's, which local video game lounge. Like, we do a lot of things to help provide spaces for people to just come out. So if your pocketbook's a little low, that's fine. Just show up, and that helps us out substantially.
Yeah, and I know everyone's like what do they call it? Like the terms of endearment are not they're not all the same. Some people prefer um experiences, some people prefer giving like money, some people prefer just like supporting in the background, um but yeah, we appreciate like any kind of support we can get. But yeah, like he said, our biggest support is if you just come to an event, and also if you provide us with feedback. We love feedback. Um, we love hearing like what was good, what was not so good, what could we improve, anything to make um, an event more comfortable for somebody to show up to is always encouraging.
Love
All
that.
right, and we're probably going to take those your Facebook page, your if you have the Discord links and stuff like that, we'll probably grab all that and put that down in the video when this is all edited and figured out. So we'll probably have that down in the information just so that if people do want to just click and go. I do know you guys had a merch page. I went and took a look. Lots of fun. And yeah, I saw the donation areas, and then you said this whole thing really started with a substantial grant that you got in the beginning of all this. So the financial funding has kind of always been present in your situation, but it is good to hear that you guys are really happy with the people that show up, because yes, the people supporting the cause by just showing up is one thing, but then you get the connections outside of that as well. And as one person tells to another person, then tells to another person, eventually one person could reach within a day way more than you could with just a Facebook post sometimes. So the reach that you can get just from talking and showing up to events is worth all the money in the world too at times. So we'll make sure to have that up for you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, is there any closing shout outs you wanted to give, or anything that you wanted to briefly go over that we may not have touched in the questions?
I think honestly, I would like to shout out like all the different other gaming LGBTQ organizations. I know there's so many. We worked with quite a few, from Phoenix Gamers to LA Gamers, Queerty Gamers. Such a tongue twister. All around the world, London Gamers, like everybody. We DFW Gamers. We always we appreciate y'all and everything y'all do to help the community elsewhere around the world.
Yeah. And, on that, I just want to thank y'all. We really appreciate y'all taking time to talk with us, learn a little bit about our organization, providing the platform so that way we can talk about not only us, but the Houston-based LGBTQ community. And, thank y'all for what y'all are doing, and we really appreciate it. Keep up the good work.
Well, thank you for coming over here, guys. I think that's about covered all the questions we had for you guys. And anything on your side, Justin?
No, that's it. I just appreciate you all coming out. It definitely, even just these small conversations, it just reaffirm anything I personally have where I'm like, yes, I'm valid, and I'm sure everybody listening as well, even if they're there or somewhere in between, are definitely knowing that there's people out there that are supported by your organization and other organizations than us as well. It's always heartwarming, and it feels good to have these kind of dialogues where it's all very inclusive and very much building each other up. So I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming out.
And thank y'all so much.
Thank y'all.